Log active, Wayne Terminal, 06D. Contingency Archive, 391. Clearance, black. Subject, unknown. Alias, Steve. Species, unknown. Humanoid approximation. Dimensional origin, pocket universe, cube, 0. Threat, tier, unclassifiable. Codename, Builder God. He arrived in silence. No ship, no trace, no signature. The only evidence of his presence was the landscape, flattened, cut, and rebuilt into something geometric. Ordered, perfect. This isn't a man, this isn't a god. This is a user with admin access. Steve doesn't come from our world. He comes from a simulation, but one with physical consequences. His universe is built of manipulable structure, blocks of programmable matter, subject to will. And within that world, he is the only true constant, a sentient anomaly capable of dismantling, reshaping, and mastering every law within his sandbox reality. The threat lies not in what he brings. The threat is what he can build with nothing. There is no origin file, no timestamp, no record of birth, growth, or ancestry. Steve simply was. One moment, nothing. The next, a figure standing alone, pickaxe in hand, punching trees, gathering resources, constructing shelter. The environment responded. It bowed to his needs. If this were merely coding, I wouldn't be writing this file. The problem is this. He learned, and then he began to move between dimensions. Steve's base universe is segmented into zones. The overworld, primary environment. The nether, parallel hellscape. The end, void space containing an apex predator class entity. He has conquered each. He navigates rift spaces casually, without tools or incantation. Constructs interdimensional gateways, travels instantly, survives transitions. Recent data indicates he's breached containment of his original cube space. Cross-dimensional fractures have been observed. Reality layering errors, geometric anomalies in natural physics, block-structured terrain briefly manifesting in urban landscapes. If he's bleeding into our world, one pixel at a time, containment is already late. Baseline strength. Can punch through solid stone with bare hands. Shatters trees in under 4 seconds. Lifts multi-ton blocks without visible strain. Has constructed mountain-sized fortresses single-handedly. Endurance. Requires no sleep. Recovers instantly through food-based item use. Falls from any height mitigated by a bucket of water. Has tanked lava, void exposure, and lightning. Speed. Crosses land at 6 blocks per second. Approx. 7.2 MERS. Teleports via consumables or portal systems. Can scale vertical structures indefinitely via item usage. But physical attributes are not the danger. The real threat is constructive manipulation. Steve can dismantle and reassemble any element of his environment. Dirt, stone, wood, metal, obsidian, diamond. Transforms raw elements into weapons, tools, structures, and machines. Observed creating automated defense systems, self-replicating redstone logic circuits, pressure-sensitive traps, explosive chain reactions, AI-driven golems for combat or defense. The world is his toolkit. Nothing is sacred. Nothing is fixed. You build a wall, he makes a pickaxe. You flood a valley, he builds a dam. You remove his tools, he punches trees again. You can't stop someone who always starts over. Steve exhibits no speech, no emotion, no hesitation. He observes, assesses, builds, then he tests. He pushes boundaries of what he can survive, burns himself to test fire resistance, swims in lava, drowns, then resurfaces. Fights apex predators with nothing but a stick, just to see if he can. Pain is not deterrent. Death is temporary. He respawns. He treats consequence as inconvenience. Steve possesses what I call the endless pocket. A personal dimension of unknown depth, tied to a 3x9 grid he mentally references. Within this space, he stores armoires of enchanted gear, stacks of construction material, potions, relics, and ender-based artifacts, and food. Always food. He does not drop what he carries unless killed. Even then, he retrieves it. He bends space around need, packs mountains into his palm, carries hundreds of tons in seconds. I've reviewed footage of him pulling obsidian from nowhere, building a tower under his own feet while rising into the sky. This isn't inventory. This is a reality fracture he carries in his pocket. He dies, and he returns, repeatedly, without external resurrection. Death is reset, not end. Each death appears to restore him to a nearby origin point, often marked with a bed or beacon-like construct. He builds respawn anchors, declares safe points, weaponizes mortality. Even if neutralized, he'll be back, and he will build around your failure. Steve will engage if provoked, or if threatened, or if challenged. Once in conflict, he escalates fast, crafts armor mid-fight, constructs barriers between sword strikes, heals while falling, switches weapons for elemental advantage. He doesn't panic, he doesn't retreat, he builds while bleeding. Steve is a survivalist, an explorer, a miner, a fighter. But what unsettles me most is this: he is a creator. He builds homes, gardens, villages, railways, statues. He doesn't destroy for pleasure. He rebuilds, refines, as if he's preparing something, a base, a machine, a message, or maybe a world. One that looks like ours, block by block, line by line. And when he finishes building it, what happens next? I've fought gods, monsters, aliens, engineers of chaos. Steve is none of these, and all of them. He is a system. He is progression without limits. He is the player who never stops playing. And when the game bleeds into our world, we won't be the world anymore. We'll be the sandbox. You cannot cage a concept. You cannot trap a player in a world he built. Any wall you raise, he's already dug under. Any sky you seal, he's already flown past. You don't contain Steve. You only delay him from building the next exit. I've contained Kryptonians. I've sealed speedsters. I've isolated gods. But every time I construct a cell for Steve, I discover he's already solved it, or worse, restructured it. Containment isn't a structure to him, it's a resource. Physical containment failed. Standard materials, reinforced titanium carbon steel, broken with a pickaxe. Sonic-based vibration traps, dug around. Magno-field prisons, dug through. No door, lightless concrete cubes suspended in midair. He places torches, builds stairs. He brought his own light to darkness. He brought his own freedom to confinement. He built a door where I made none. Attempted deployment of force fields using Star Labs' multi-phase energy netting. Result: Steve constructed a TNT cannon, fired it through phased openings, field bent under repeated strikes. Energy dissipated upon contact with explosive yield. Redstone-compatible materials resonate at frequencies our equipment wasn't designed for. Conclusion: he translates fictional mechanics into real physics. And worse, our physics accept it. Concept: construct a fake world tailored to contain and distract Steve. Design parameters: infinite terrain, resource-rich biomes, passive mobs, procedurally generated villages, no portals, no end, no escape. Result: failure in under 72 hours. Steve recognized the terrain algorithm, recognized lack of dimensional progression, began manipulating the sky, deconstructed the sun. At hour 70, he constructed a new portal from memory alone. Where it led, we don't know. Where he went, we still don't know. Attempted psychological containment using spawned mobs. Wolves tamed and distracted him for minutes. Villagers engaged in trading briefly. Piglins, brief skirmish before complete annihilation. All of them failed. He loses interest the moment he masters the interaction, then deconstructs the environment. You can't bait someone who's already mined the outcome. Wayne Tech Development Project. Code-proof prism. A cross-dimensional cage constructed using quantum-scrambled code strings and unstable atoms, held in procedural suspension. Designed to appear unrendered, invisible, uninteractable. Steve entered the space, stopped moving for 38 seconds, then placed a single torch. Glitch rendered the walls visible. He broke the wall, escaped. He built through the code. He didn't exploit the system, he understood it. Primary issue: Steve never truly dies. Destroys Ender Dragon, survives. Explodes next to TNT cluster, survives. Drowns in lava, respawns. Falls into the void, respawns. Attempts to destroy spawn anchors, beds, beacons, respawn crystals were irrelevant. Steve reboots the world around him. He doesn't return to life. He reboots the rules of life. Only known temporary success, isolating him in the end dimension without exit crystals. Estimated time to escape, 7 hours. He returned, with building plans for us. Theory: if Steve operates under rule logic, perhaps corrupt the rules. Redacted protocol, project, glitch walk. Injected corrupted item data into his inventory to cause desync and world crash. Effect: none. Steve stored the item in a chest and continued building. The glitch failed to affect his dimension. Ours crashed instead. He doesn't crash with error. He recovers with adaptation. He shows no spoken language, no visible effect, yet he builds villages, he rescues wolves, he builds graves when iron golems fall, he names his animals, he lights areas where nothing threatens him. These aren't survival behaviors, they're sentimental. Theory: he remembers, possibly from previous lives, possibly from previous runs. This is a player with emotional continuity. Steve was thought to be alone, but records show another. Alex. Brief interactions, shared environments, no aggression, mutual support, item exchanges. If Alex exists, so might others. Builders, crafters, slayers, mods. We are not dealing with a singular god. We may be facing a community, each with their own tools, each with their own spawn point, each with their own agenda. This is not a containment scenario. This is a server breach. Most enemies destroy. Steve builds. Faster than I can plan, stronger than I can counter. Every wall becomes his staircase. Every cage becomes his canvas. To fight Steve, you don't destroy, you outcreate. Combat against Steve requires abandoning traditional warfare. The threat isn't offense, it's adaptation. He does not fight to win, he fights to transform. And once a battlefield becomes his workshop, the battle is already lost. Direct attacks are invalid. He reacts faster than humans. He swaps armor mid-fight. He builds vertically to avoid melee. He floods terrain to slow pursuit. He constructs traps from the materials around you while under fire. I once launched a focused EM disruptor field around his location. He disabled it using pistons and redstone. Pistons and redstone in 90 seconds. He doesn't run. He builds around the threat. Every weapon becomes obsolete the moment he sees it. If destruction fails, contain his path with structure. Strategy 1, architectural looping. Create infinite repeating corridors made from different block materials. Each room resets behind him. If the terrain feels familiar, he slows down to remap. Success rate, 12.5%, delay time increase. Failure risk, eventually rediscovers exit. Upgrade recommendation, introduce logic traps. Structures that rebuild as soon as he breaks them. His greatest strength is the redstone system. Programmable, logic-based devices. I studied them, copied them, then corrupted them. Created redstone cascade errors, RCEs. Wires that loop back on themselves. Pistons that trigger infinite push loops. Sound-based redstone loops that disorient. He encountered one, paused for 5 seconds, then destroyed the mechanism. Still, 5 seconds. That's more than most enemies give me. I constructed his own base, block for block, chest for chest, planted it far from his last known coordinates. Waited. He arrived within 72 minutes, walked the halls, opened the doors, paused at the chest, looked inside. Nothing. He turned, built a sign, wrote, "Nice try," then placed TNT on every floor and vanished. The theory: starve him of building blocks. The problem: he doesn't need abundance. Give him a tree, he builds a city. Give him dirt, he crafts towers. Give him lava and water, he makes stone, obsidian, and glass. I even tried placing him in a block-less void. He walked for 5 days, then placed a bedrock block, unknown origin. He adapts, so adapt back. I introduced elements outside his typical world logic. Escher-like structures, impossible gravity chambers, self-regenerating corridors, traps made from circular architecture, non-block shaped. He struggled, he still adapted, but he hesitated. Conclusion: Steve's limitations may be aesthetic. His perception of reality is cuboid. If forced to operate in curves and chaos, he slows down. Target zone, disrupt spatial logic. Steve doesn't speak, but he responds to other creators. Using AI-generated simulation agents, I deployed builder drones with anti-Steven blueprints, recursive construction systems, AI miners programmed to reshape terrain faster than he could. Result: Steve didn't destroy them. He competed. He built faster, smarter, more complex. This was not a battle. This was an art contest he refused to lose. I shut the system down. He rebuilt it anyway. Steve's silence is deceptive. He does things for reasons. One simulation revealed a pattern. Every time he built a house, he left a sign. Every time he lost a pet, he built a grave. Every time a villager died, he placed a bed nearby. He is not mindless. He is building meaning. So I gave him one. A village that remembers him. Chests named after his dogs. Buildings he didn't build, but recognized. A world where he already mattered. He stopped building, stared at a structure for 14 minutes, then left. Conclusion: emotion disrupts him temporarily. He uses beds to reset, to mark a home. I placed fake beds, tricked his internal compass, corrupted the respawn link. Result: he awoke in an empty world, flat, barren, endless. He built a staircase to the sky, waited, jumped, respawned somewhere else entirely. He moved his soul, without our permission. All games end, but not all players log out. Some stay, some rebuild, and some decide the next world should start with nothing. Steve is not bound by victory. He's bound by iteration. If everything fails, if containment is meaningless, if disruption is ignored, then we proceed to the void clause. This is not a weapon. This is a last breath of resetting the game board before the builder does it for us. The worst case scenario isn't that Steve destroys the world, it's that he deletes it from the code up. Stage 1, Steve stops interacting. Stage 2, he opens inventory and discards all tools. Stage 3, he builds upward, one block at a time, into the sky. Stage 4, at the world height limit, he jumps. Stage 5, silence. This isn't suicide, this is reinitialization. Within 60 seconds of this sequence, trees begin to vanish, oceans flatten, gravity stabilizes to perfect constant, random terrain generation halts, the sun stops moving, and then nothing, just empty world space. He doesn't reset the world, he removes the idea of one. The void clause, execution conditions. This clause activates only when all the following conditions are met. 1. Steve has rejected every engagement scenario. 2. All containment efforts have been breached. 3. Environmental signs of world rewriting have begun. 4. NPC behavior resets, a known precursor to full simulation override. 5. The sky becomes permanently static. When these triggers align, we initiate the final contingency. Final protocol. Project. Obsidian Mirror. I designed the mirror for one purpose, to make him see himself, not his blocks, not his inventory, not his creations, him, alone, without a world to touch. Project. Obsidian Mirror is a 64 by 64 by 64 block cube, a perfect replica of a structure he once built. Every item, every chest, every torch, identical, except the walls. The walls are screens, displaying every time he's destroyed, every time he's rebuilt, every time he's repeated the same actions expecting something different. He enters, the doors close, he walks the halls of his own history. The final room contains a pressure plate. It doesn't trigger TNT, it doesn't open a door, it plays a sound file. You can stop playing now. If Steve steps on the plate and vanishes, the simulation freezes. No fade, no flash, just stops. The sky becomes solid, the animals freeze, the blocks no longer respond. Input is ignored, world ended, not destroyed, retired. If this happens, do not reinitiate. Do not attempt reboot. Do not restore backup. Let the silence remain. That's the only way we know he chose to stop. If the mirror fails, and Steve keeps building, we activate Project Fault Line, a virus disguised as terrain data, embedded into bedrock, not detectable by Steve, until he places a block in a key location. Once triggered, generates infinite recursive terrain that folds back on itself. All resources become duplicates. All tools break upon crafting. Mobs become silent observers. Weather locks to permanent fog. No end, no nether, no portal frame ever completes. Steve is trapped in creation with no purpose. He builds, but the world never changes. This is not punishment. This is mercy. If even that fails, if he adapts, If he learns to break recursion, then we give him what he may secretly want. Nothing. Absolute void. We isolate him from dimension, extract the coordinates of his simulation, invert the light grid, remove the sky. No blocks, no inventory, no commands. He wakes up on a flat plane of obsidian. No horizon, no sunrise, no end, just one sign. This is what you left behind. And one chest. Empty. Steve is not evil. But that doesn't matter. His power to build, reshape, and replicate is not malevolent. It's inevitable. And inevitability must be acknowledged. You can't stop him with fists. You can't contain him with walls. You can't reason with him through words. You must reach the player, not the character. That's the only win condition left. One final possibility remains. What if Steve is not just Steve? What if someone else is watching, directing Ra from outside? A player, a hand, a will greater than the block. Then this entire file is not about defeating him. It's about convincing whoever's holding the controller to let go. And if that's true, then this is not a contingency. It's a plea. The greatest threat isn't the sword. It isn't the pickaxe. It isn't the portal. It's the silence before he chooses to build again. And the question we may never answer, what happens when he finishes? End file. Contingency status. Complete. Classification. God tier. Activation. Never. Night file 391. Archived under Builder God.